Okay, yeah, it came up.
Okay, so we are live and recording now. So, any rate, as I said, we have 40 people registered. We have not only the zip code 05301 and various zip codes in Vermont, but we have zip codes from 9 other locations across the nation. We have two, well, at least they've been registered, I'm not sure. Two from California, Florida, Illinois, New York, Arizona, and DC, and I think Texas as well, with a person with some Vermont roots. So this is really cool. So to begin with, I'd like to introduce two people. Wayne Blanchard, who is the co-conspirator in this venture that we've been doing, that we had hoped to do at Brooks Library in Brattleboro and the Rockingham Library in Bellows Falls, but other things intervened in the last 6 months. And we have today Rachel Onuf, who is the roving archivist for Vermont State Archives, and she'll be giving us a short blurb on Vermont Archives Month, which is this month, and the plans for that. And that'll be after our presentations, before we open it up to just our general discussions on genealogy and other questions. So any rate, you're all muted, or most of you are muted, so it's best to keep muted while we're doing this, so in case your phone rings or the dog barks or whatever, it doesn't interrupt our flow. And does everybody know how to use the chat feature? Which is that little, sometimes what you're, and with a PC or Mac, it's at the bottom of your screen, but if you're using a phone, you usually have to go to a little more control, and that will then give you a chance to open up the chat. And you can just ask questions as they come to you during our presentations, and we'll try to address them afterwards, because we did leave some time for that after each presentation. So I'm going to start off just with I'm going to share my screen and just put up the agenda for today. We have, oh yeah, you could actually use your chat box to introduce yourselves if you want. That would be a good idea, and put your genealogical interest. So the first thing we're going to do is Wayne's going to give us a 30-minute intro to Ancestry.com, to how we might be able to improve our search results using that incredible database. Then I'll follow up with a little bit on FamilySearch.org, the world's largest free genealogical database, and provide some tips on using various aspects of that. Then Rachel will do her little promo for Vermont Archives Month and Vermont Voice and Vote, which is about women's suffrage, which we have the 100th anniversary this year, and it's a really cool project, and I'm sure people will be interested in what she has to say. Then we'll just open it up for discussions and come up with some topics for next meeting that people are interested in exploring, and come up with a date. So I'm going to stop the share and turn it over to Wayne.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen. Oops. So I've put together some slides just because I wasn't sure about going live on Ancestry with this. Let me, okay. So in terms of getting started, I mean, this is the basic search box. If you've used Ancestry at all and used the search, this is the simplest way to get started. My slide here may be a little outdated. You know, it says 30,000 titles. I think there are more than that now, with billions of records. So, I mean, obviously what it's doing is just taking your search criteria and looking for the best possible matches. So what to think about? You know, to get started with that search box, obviously you have to have a person in mind, and you need to think about what makes that person unique, something unique about them. So if you've got a name, a place, hopefully some dates, rough dates about when they lived, and if you know other relationships, other people in the ancestor's life, any of those things would certainly help in making a search. So, I mean, the question is, what unique aspects are going to be included in the records? Obviously not every record has every piece of information you want, so you need to look at multiple records. So I'm going to try to use this cousin of mine. This is a picture of the Rockingham Meeting House Cemetery, and there's a Jonathan Blanchard buried there. So I've used him as an example before of, you know, I was curious whether I had some relationship to him, and to find out more about him. So anyway, so putting in the basic facts about him, we know that he died in Rockingham, and making an assumption that he might have also lived here. We know he died in 1835, and there's a handy dandy little calculated box here to estimate a birth year. You click on that, calculate it, and it will, you can put in a date, and if you know a person's known date and age on that date, and it will give you the estimated birth year. So once you by putting that information in, Ancestry displays the results, at least every time I've done it, it displays it in this fashion, which is called the record version. It's up here in the upper right corner where records is underlined. And then of course you can do a lot of, you can click on the link and open up that record, or you can filter the link by the various categories that go down the left side. Or you can click on categories and see the information displayed by each category. So one of the new features is, and I think it's going to be a big improvement, is down here on the left side, you can narrow your results down by location and by date. So we had, you know, thousands of hits before. When I clicked on just 1700s, you can see up here that it's narrowed it down to 98 results about Jonathan Blanchard in the 1700s. And we actually have some pretty good possibilities here, that a marriage record, a birth record, you know, these first three are pretty, well, as it turns out, they were pretty accurate. Clicking on one of those, you know, it'll bring up both the way the record was transcribed by Ancestry, and you can also click on the link to see the actual document, the actual record. Here's the different view. If you click on, instead of records, you click on categories, it'll group all of these things by the various types of categories that are in Ancestry. By the way, that feature to narrow it down by date doesn't work in this version, you know, in this part of it yet. I don't know. I guess maybe it's still obviously under development. which means you can see some weird records popping up here, um, things in the 1940s for a person, who died in 1835. That's one of the reasons I really like that they're working on a feature that makes it more exact to the person's lifetime, that the record more exact to the person's lifetime. Because it's kind of, there's just a lot of extra information there. I mean, he's not going to be in a World War II draft record. He's not going to be in an immigration record. So anyway, I think that'll help improve the whole search results. So one of the things to do is to search through, to go through a category and then find the most appropriate database for what you're searching for. So in this case, we want to know more about Jonathan Blanchard, where he lived. And so you can you can choose census records, and then you can narrow it down further by the, by the decade. So in doing that, just a little bit about census searching. It's helpful if you search in the census year directly, so that you narrow it down to the area, where is most likely to be found. So we know he died in 1835. We want to see if we can find him in the 1830 census, just as an example. And it's helpful to keep track of, how, your search criteria, what you've used, so you don't keep repeating it. There are some ways to do this without, I've discovered, for example, when I was searching for him, that his name was transcribed incorrectly. So he didn't appear as a search result initially. So you can search census records by, by going into the town itself, and then you got to sort of, kind of page through them as if you were paging through an actual census record book. But so it's a long array around, but it's a more thorough way to search the record. Ancestry does allow, has wildcard searches. So Blanchard sometimes, the typical, well, maybe because my name is spelled that way, it's Blanchard, but there's also Shard, and then there's also Blanchette and so forth. So you could type in BLAN*, and hopefully you would get any of those variations. Also in the census, it's helpful to check, check other people in the neighborhood. Chances are they probably are, you might run across the relative by doing it that way. And I always urge people to look on the page before and page after, especially there are times where the person you're looking for may come up on one page, but the rest of the family is on like the previous page or on the next page. So don't forget to look for that. So anyway, with Jonathan here, we know he was buried in Rockingham, but the census, we've got 1820 and 1830 here showing that he is living in Rockingham as well. So when you go into that, you go into more depth. Fortunately here, he came up as the first possibility. And then there's all, there are other Jonathan Blanchards, one right nearby here in Walpole versus one in Rockingham. So you're going to find a lot of people with the same name. You got to sort it out, figure out which one is the one you're looking for. And then here's the 1830 census, and he's down here at the bottom with the the various count of the people in his family at that point. So, just from those two databases, one looking at the marriage record, one going through the census records, we kind of get a picture of, that he lived in town for a good long time. He had the family kept growing. He had a very large family. And of course, we already knew, we started out with the fact that he died here and was buried here. Um, Thinking about some of the other ways of searching in location, by default, Ancestry it's what I call a fuzzy search. In other words, it wants to give you something when you type in a name. So you can then, if you get too many hits, or you're reasonably certain of that you're going to find the person in a particular place, you can restrict it. You can make it exact to whatever you typed in, or you can search on the county level, the county and adjacent counties, state, or the state and adjacent states, and then of course the whole country. So you've got a whole level of search options by how much you restrict where the location is. And you can add other locations by using that lived in search box. You can add other ones there. Just a reminder, family members, as we looked at the 1830 census, it's just the head of the household plus a count of who was in the household. So it's not till 1850 that you see other household members, and it's not till 1880 census that you see how they're related to each other. A couple reminders that sometimes it's better to start a whole new search, because when you pick a collection, it kind of sticks to that collection. So if you need a broader, or you just need to remember that if you do something else with the search, because it will keep the collection that you started with as you're trying to do the search. And the same thing happens with record types. So, you're searching for census records or marriage records or whatever, you need to be careful that if you want to find other records, you need to back it up and go to, find all the categories, and not, otherwise you're going to stay in that record type. Well, this slide is just, Ancestry is pretty loose about, they assume a person's going to live to 100 years. So if you put in a birth year, it's going to search for everything before that birth year and a couple years, 100 years plus a couple years beyond that. So you can also, narrow things down by, if you don't know the exact date, if you know he had a birth date, but you don't know when he died, you can search, and it will assume the person lived 100 years. But you can also change that and narrow it down. Same thing with you can put in a birth and a death year. It's going to go plus or minus the birth year plus the death year. So again, you can make that more exact, but by default, Ancestry is giving you a pretty broad search. So I like to say, you don't want to search for cereal in the auto parts aisle. In other words, instead of doing a whole huge global search, choose the most useful database for the kind of information that you're looking for. So if you suspect that, the person lived if the person was born 18 years before a war, you might want to focus in on searching for military records, for example, because he could have, could well have been drafted, or he might have volunteered. That just as an example, so you might want to search military records in that case. If you know when the person died, you might want to search probate records as an example. If assuming you've found, birth, death, and marriage records, you might try to look for an obituary in the newspaper section on Ancestry. So in other words, choose the database that gives you, looking for results for the kind of information you're looking for. So you can find specific databases using this Ancestry card catalog. If you know the title of the record collection that you want, you can use this top box up here where it says title. It's kind of tricky though. It's not nearly as user-friendly as Google. You know, for example, if I was looking for records and I knew there were Vermont records and Vermont was in the title, if you type VT, you won't get anything. You have to type out the word Vermont. So you really kind of need to get to know how those things are cataloged in order to use the title. But if you already know, you know, if you've used it before, for example, I've used this database called Pioneers of Massachusetts. It's actually a book that you can search through. So when I want to go back to that book, I can just type in Pioneers of Massachusetts and it'll take me right there. If I didn't know that, you know, you can use the keyword thing and type in the keyword. I guess what I'm saying is keyword is probably more useful, especially if you're looking for a new, you know, a new source, a new records. You know, you want to just see if something's in there in Ancestry. So, for example, you can type in. I typed in Rockingham, Vermont, and I got 5 results. So now most of these are books under the category Stories, Memories, and Histories. So if you'll notice here, some of them are related to specific families within there, but down here, the last 2 hits, we've got the old Rockingham Meeting House, and we know that Jonathan was buried in the Meeting House Cemetery. And we got the records of the First Church of Rockingham, which is also the Meeting House. So if I want to search there, click on that database, type in his name, and we get a search result. We got 2 Blanchards in here, but Jonathan Blanchard is listed there. Click on that, and then we find that Jonathan was a Protestant Episcopal who, by religious preference, and did not want to support the town church. Same thing can go with the searching the First Church of Rockingham. Click on, put him in there, and we come up with a record of his marriage in Rockingham on the 7th of December in 1797. So the other ways to search this, you can just search on the family name, see what you get. This search on Blanchard gave 34 records. Over here, it tells you by location. So there was 1 in Canada, probably this one in French at the top of the list here, and then 33 others in the US. Just as a side note here, a little Blanchard trivia. In this list, I'd run across this book before, but there's a commemorative of Calvin and Luther Blanchard, Acton Minutemen. So these are Jonathan's 3rd cousins once removed. And it just was interesting to me to find this Luther was a fifer and was the first man hit by a British bullet at Northbridge and Concord in April 1775. Anyway, I didn't find anything specific about him, but as I've been researching other Blanchard relatives, it was just kind of a neat thing to find out that somebody was there. Unfortunately, he was shot. And then, you can use this card catalog in a lot of different ways. Just use it as a subject. If you think of the old card catalogs in the library, there was a subject index as well. And so here, if you wanted to find out more about what Protestant Episcopal meant, we have 13 hits in Ancestry databases, 13 databases in Ancestry that has some information about the Protestant Episcopal Church. A caution I just want to throw out in terms of using search results, it's important to really evaluate your search results. Think about does this make sense? Is this, record make sense? So here's an example. It's a death certificate for a fellow, one of my ancestors, that shows he was born in 1835 and that his mother was Miss Cole here on the death certificate, death record. And then down the bottom, I've got the history of Monroe that shows the same information and says his mother was Mary A. Cole, which fits with the death record. And the history says she was born in 1826. So everything matched. I just accepted it and never did the math. I just said, well, it's there. It fits with what I know. He must be, she must be his mother. It wasn't until later when I was going back through, trying to find out more about this Fisher family, that I realized that unless this was a biblical miracle, 9-year-old Mary did not give birth to Francis, which meant I needed to find that his father must have had an earlier wife, and I needed to go searching to find that person. I mean, it's a little difficult in terms of sorting this out because clearly Mary was his mother. I mean, she raised him. She would have probably been the mother he really knew, but was not the mother that gave birth to him. So a few just tips about searching. I use those leaf hints, but as I just said, you should review them critically. Don't accept them until you're sure. I also search through family trees of other people who are researching the same person. But mainly what I look for there is documents in the family trees that support what I already know about the person. And I guess what I'm urging you to do here is to go beyond looking for birth or death records or marriage records. If you search in several places, you can really find some interesting things. I have found some amazing stuff in probate records, some of the military pension records. People had to write a lot of, had to collect a lot of different letters of support to get a pension, for example. And so there's a lot of genealogical information in there, in those records. And it's in more of a narrative form, so you find a little bit more about the person's life. But just a couple of other tips that I've come to realize. I have not done a lot of this myself, but people make complaints about on Ancestry that the trees are, horrible, that, they're inaccurate and so forth. Some people literally are really just experimenting or trying things out, and those trees are posted there. The advice that was given to me is that if you're doing a research tree, just kind of playing around with it, trying to see what you can find, is to keep it private and unsearchable. But on the other hand, I really encourage people to put at least some trees that you've done and make them public so you can share them with other people. All right, so that kind of wraps it up for me. See if I can stop the sharing here.
That was great. Thanks.
So were there questions? I couldn't see the chat thing when I was doing that. So.
I didn't see any. So, but people can ask questions now.
Okay.
Can you do more than one family tree on Family Search as well as on Ancestry?
You can have more than one tree on Ancestry for sure. I have several. I use, well, Jerry's going to talk a lot more about Family Search, but I do have one, I have connected into their monster tree. I don't know how else to describe it. It's a crowdsourced, tree on Family Search. So again, I use that as a place to look for hints and things. I have not added a whole lot there myself. I mean, I put in enough to get started, and then as soon as I put in a few people, it said, well, are you then it pops up with the record and says, are you connected to these people? And if you say yes, then you're automatically included in the larger tree. But I don't know, Jerry, can you have your own private tree on Family Search?
I've never considered it, but I don't think you can.
Yeah.
It'd be a good question.
I wasn't sure how that works.
Yeah. It's just because, and that's what people have issues with Family Search, that people go in and change their, things.
Yeah, it's like a wiki. So,
It's a little bit like a
anybody
wiki,
can
yeah.
go in and change any of the information. I mean,
Right.
it does kind of keep a record of the changes.
Yeah, there's a
So
history.
you can argue with people about it.
Right.
Well, I've already had the experience of getting some changes on let's say Family Search when I've
Mhm.
tried it. So I'm
Yeah.
inclined to try something so it can be more private. So I guess my other question is on Ancestry, you say you can have a private tree as well as a public tree?
Yeah, you're in control of both of those, though. In other words, anything I put on my I left my trees public. But just as an example, I have a cousin that started a Blanchard family tree, and then she allowed me to come in, and there's different levels of, you can come in as an editor. In other words, you have full access to the tree, you can make changes, or you can allow people to come in and just view the tree and not be able to make any changes. So on Ancestry, you have total control of those trees. Nobody can change it unless you've allowed them to.
Yeah, it's a really good argument for having your own genealogical software, so that you could keep all your trees locally on your machine. So we talked last time about Roots Magic, very robust genealogical software, and it has Roots Magic Essentials, which is a free download, with not all the bells and whistles of the full-fledged version, which is only $29.95 anyway. But so that's a good way just to keep your trees, that you don't want changed only by yourself on your machine.
One other question then, when you're talking about Roots Magic and
Mhm.
Family Search, if you were linked in some way, does it change it on you in Roots Magic if you get a change in Family Search?
Only if you want it to. You can synchronize, but if there are hints, and you look at the hints and approve them before they come into your Roots Magic local tree.
Thank you.
I'm not as familiar with Roots Magic, but on Family Tree Maker, you can sync a tree on Ancestry with the software, Family Tree Maker software on your computer. So I sometimes do that just so that I have a backup on my own computer of what I'm doing with Ancestry.
Yeah, they most of these programs can do the various online databases: Ancestry, Family Search, MyHeritage. MyHeritage has trees too. MyHeritage has a more international, I think, scope to it. So interesting.
So there was a question about removing a tree from Ancestry and reloading from Family Tree Maker. Yeah, you should be able to. You can delete a tree off of Ancestry that you've created, and if you have it from Family Tree Maker, you can upload it to Ancestry. I mean, you need an Ancestry account in order to do that. But,
Wayne, this is Barbara. So
okay, go ahead.
what I risk losing then would be anything I saved on Ancestry, like
Well,
any,
yeah, if you delete.
unless they're So I risk losing if I haven't synced Family Tree with it already, right?
If I understand you right, yeah, if you've synced the two, everything on Family Tree Maker on your computer should be the same as what you have on Ancestry.
But if I haven't synced,
But if you haven't synced, what is it you want to remove?
I don't know.
What you've
I'm
already,
just trying to understand the whole process.
you can remove, well, I mean, you can upload from, well, basically any of the genealogy software,
Right.
you save the information as a GEDCOM file, and then you can upload it into Ancestry. So I mean, you could do that from any piece of software. The difference
But
with Family Tree Maker is that you can sync the two things together.
Yes.
You probably need one of the more recent versions of Family Tree Maker if you don't have it. But
I do. I do.
you
I
have
have I have 17. I've been a little nervous about going to 19. I saw a little bad press about it.
oh,
I don't know if anyone uses Family Tree Maker. That could
I only use it,
Yeah.
like I said, I'm using it as kind of a backup system. So
Okay.
I don't make any changes in Family Tree Maker. I make all my changes on Ancestry, and then I sync it to my Family Tree Maker file as a backup.
See, I'm
So I
kind of
look
doing
at
the
it if-
opposite.
You know, if something happens to Ancestry, I'd still have all of the information on my
Right.
computer. And if something happens to my computer, all the information is still on Ancestry. So,
Okay. Thank you.
Hello.
Yep.
Hello,
Mary.
this is Mary Henderson.
hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Mary.
I have a question. I've used Ancestry for a long time, and I wish there were a way to save my frequent searches. Is there any way to do that so that I don't have to go back to the card catalog and find it every time?
Oh,
Great
huh,
question.
that is a good question.
I use the shoebox a lot for that, for Ancestry. Do you know the shoebox?
I do but that just saves a particular record, right? I'd like to be able to save a particular search feature so that I don't have to go to the card catalog, find it again, and
Well,
go
I
from
guess
there.
it would be we could open a discussion about research logs. Every,
I don't know. I have not tried to do that. So
Right.
if somebody else says, feel free to chime in here if you've.
I mean, sometimes it will show you things that you've searched on recently, but it would
Yeah.
just be helpful if I didn't have to go and ask for a particular, Vermont death records or whatever specific thing I want every time. So
Yeah.
just wondering. Thank you.
No, I mean, it may be there. I've just never I've never tried to do
yeah.
that.
It seems to me that I have done that, but I might just be confusing it with the shoebox.
Uh-huh.
But you could just sort of create a research log with those links embedded in the research log using either a spreadsheet program or a Microsoft Word table program, and then you can
Right.
do a command find and find it and click on the link. That might work as a workaround. But that's a good question. Maybe we should try to do that. Just see if
See what I can
Ancestry,
find.
yeah, Ancestry does do that. Good question.
Well, we should probably move on to your part, Jerry.
Sure. Okay. I'll go back to screen share here. Okay. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about familysearch.org, which is the largest free genealogical database in the world. So what we're going to look at today in this short time, because I mean, it's an incredible dense portal, Family Search. But today we're just going to be looking at the wiki, which is the best jumping off point for genealogical research. And then look at a couple of different ways of approaching a search in Family Search. We'll look at the historical record collection search versus a catalog search, and then we'll check out a browse image only search, which is a way that one can search the collections that have not been indexed. So at any rate, just a little short history of the Family Search. Began in 1894 as the Genealogical Society of Utah. It began microfilming records in 1938. So they have been doing this for 82 years. they moved the microfilm to this Granite Mountain Record Vault for preservation. Supposedly, this could maybe withstand a nuclear hit. I don't know. They started their digital imaging in 1998, and their first website was launched in 99. And between 2007 to 2013, they really went headfirst into website development and mobile apps. And then a year later, they announced their partnerships with Ancestry, Find My Past, and My Heritage. So they share those records with those entities. And then in 2017, a big announcement that caused consternation with a lot of people. They discontinued their microfilm loan program, which meant that much of this digitization on microfilm, you could go to a family history center, and there are quite a few around, and ask for a loan for the microfilm, and it would be sent to these family history centers. So because of various factors, the cost of microfilm and the increased use of digitization, they decided to discontinue that, and they went really very aggressive into digitization. And they also then did enhancements to their mobile app and user-to-user messaging and that kind of stuff. So with that discontinuation, they made a commitment to have all their microfilm digitized by the year 2021. And I'm not sure how far they are along on that. Do you know, Wayne, offhand, where they might be?
Sorry, I was muted.
Yeah. Oh,
No, sorry, no,
yeah.
I don't.
Okay. At any rate, that's a great aggressive program, and I hope they continue with it. So here's a little bit of a snapshot of at the end of 2019, 6.3 billion records, searchable and images online. 4.65 billion are indexed, with 123.6 million new. But notice the difference between that figure and that figure, meaning that you got a lot of records that are not indexed, meaning that you're going to have to browse the images to find what you want. They have 22 million in their historical records collection and 832 million published in their catalog, which is really everything that they have. And it's like a card catalog, a digital card catalog. So it has the records from the historical collection, the records that they've digitized from various locations, books, and other images. So that's really the place where you should find everything. But again, there are various ways of approaching it. You have the portal, but you have all these various places where you can access the information in Family Search. And we'll look just at a couple of these today. So at any rate, we're going to look at the Family Search Wiki, historical records collection, and the catalog. So what kind of records are available? And again, it's like Ancestry. It's any type of record historically that has been created. You have census, both US and foreign, citizenship, immigration, naturalization, civil records of birth, marriage, and deaths and burial, the equivalents for church records, wills and estate files, military records, deeds, and property records. All of those are available. Okay, so let's take a look at the Family Search Wiki. 94,000 articles and growing, how-to articles used for genealogical resources or geographic locations. And so I have this little exercise here, which of course I've gone through it, so it won't be totally new, but this was find the death record for Edward Edwards of Guilford, Vermont. He was born in Vermont between 1812 and 1814. Became a wheelwright, married twice. He died in Brattleboro between 1886 and 1890. And what's very interesting, he was a spiritualist who could believe he could communicate with his ancestors via mediums. And the Brattleboro Historical Society has a trove of letters, non-digitized, that are to him from his 2 deceased wives, his mother, niece, and brother, sent to him from the afterlife through 3 different mediums. They're very interesting to read. I wrote a piece on it for the Vermont History Journal with some of his letters, and they're just kind of interesting to read. Of when it was done was between 1886 and his death, and it showed how important this was to people's lives in the middle to latter part of the 19th century. Anyway, so let's take a look at that before we go on to the historical record. So I'm going to do a new share. I wasn't as smart as Wayne, and I probably should have done this with the actual PowerPoint, but let's see what we can find here. Okay. And instead of going there, excuse me, why is I hide this control? Okay. So, all right. So this is the landing page for Family Search. You need to create a account. It's free, but you can do that if nobody has. I know that there are many of you who have accounts here, so probably won't be an issue. But if you haven't, it's very easy. You can create your free account. So the first thing we are going to look at is the wiki. So we're going to go here, and these are the various places where one can search. So let's look at this research wiki. And again, you can type anything in this search box here. It will, go through and find the various articles. But if you really want to know about a place, which is the way that most genealogical research is done, this wiki is a great place to start. So let me know, or let Wayne know if you cannot see what's in front of you, because I'll be changing and going through the wiki and changing various websites. Anyway, so this is Vermont United States Genealogy. Just to give you just a short review of it. It will go through and sort of tell you what is available for Vermont. Getting started with Vermont research. There's a clickable map, so you can drill down to whatever county that you want, and they also have the counties listed. Various articles on migration routes, other family search research resources, additional resources, and the side panel over here, you can go in and look by record types. And we'll come back here when we do the second part of this exercise. But right here, you'll have these 3 areas, and how about let's look at how to find death records. So we know that he died between 1886 and 1890. So they have these 3 time periods listed here. And the one we're going to look at is this one right here. So they've actually given you kind of a guided search of where you might try looking. And there's several collections of vital records for Vermont and most locations on Family Search. And some of these may or may not have your ancestor. So you need to be a little bit more aggressive in trying these. But let's just try this first one here. So this is Vermont Town Clerk Vital Records 1732 to 2005 index, which is nice to look at, and images to birth, marriage, and death records. So this one is an index collection. So we can try that one first. So in this sense, you can actually type in the information, but you can also browse through these records as well. You can browse through the images, and that will give you a browse, most of the image browse in Family Search is hierarchical. So it starts from the most general and you work through the most specific. So you kind of have to know here where to look. So that's Windham County, Brattleboro, and then you see you can then click on the actual link for that. So at any rate, just to hopefully cut our time here a little short, we'll just try searching by his name. So we're pretty sure of his name. You could broaden that up if you weren't, and you can use wildcard as well, as Wayne showed with Ancestry. So we know that his death was, we said, sometime between 1886 and 1890. And we'll do the search. Okay, so not to hold you in a lot of suspense here, but at any rate, as you can see, there are at least 5 Edward Edwards in Vermont. These do not have death dates, but this one does. And this guy is probably our guy, because here's the 1814 birth date, 1890. So that sort of makes those two links fairly valid. And this is where you can view the record. I'll click on the record details first. So this is an extraction from the actual record, but a warning, this is not the total extraction. So it gives you his name. It wasn't of death. He was male, blah, blah. It gives you his parents and mother's name. But really, to check out the actual source, you have to click on the image. And so this is a death register for the town of Brattleboro. It's page 92 of this book that resides in the town clerk's office. And just looking through this page here, we come down to February 12th, 1890. Here he is. So he was died at the age of 76, and actually 613 will give you his age, and you could actually figure out his original birth date by doing that calculation. It says here that he was a widower. So we knew that from my information, which I had known that, but if you didn't, you would know that his wife was living. And it gives you his cause of death. So that was a fairly easy one to figure out by using the wiki and just kind of looking through those records. You can see the information here. We'll give you for your research log. You can use this to pinpoint it. I always try to record this and record the actual collection so I can create a source citation for it. And I always try to put the image too, although theoretically, if you copy this link and put it in your research log, it should go right to it. You can also download the record, and they have some tools as well, so you can actually adjust it if it's too dark or too light before you download it. So that's one of the advantages. So that was finding his death record. So let's see. Need to get back to okay. All right, so that was that search in using the wiki. So let's try to find, sorry. Let's try to use the historical record search to find a probate record for the will of Edward Eder. So we know he died February 12th, 1890. So we'll go back to our browsing screen and come up here, and we'll do a search. I want to go back to the research wiki. Let's just pretend that I know nothing about probate records, and go back to the wiki for Vermont. And so let's use this side panel here and check out probate records. So this is going to show Vermont probate records and give you some background about it. First, it will give you a couple of online resources. Here we have a synopsis of what the record is, with some footnotes. Tells you the various types. Gives you a little bit of history of how probate records have been treated, and tells you what happened before 1777, before Vermont became a republic, and since 77, they were kept in probate district courts. Talk about early Vermont probate districts were specific to the geographic area of the county. Goes on to talk about they created 3 probate districts in Bennington, Rutland, and Cumberland County, which, by the way, was Cumberland County, New York. Southern Vermont was part of New York back in 1777, which included Guilford, Rockham, Windsor, Barnet, and also Brattleboro. They don't mention that, though. And then, at any rate, what actually happens here is that there are 2 probate districts for each county, and that's going to be a clue in trying to find this record. So at any rate, they have this particular link here and also this one here. If we go to this one here, you'll find that right away, by reading the scope note here, they actually just have images for Chittenden and Essex County. It says additional counties will be added later. So that is one issue. This one is possible, but it's at Ancestry. So if you see here, they have a little $sign. If you don't have an account at Ancestry, you can't look at that record. Wayne could, or if you are a patron at Rockingham Public Library or Brooks, you can go into their facility or use their Wi-Fi signal to access that. And many libraries across the country do have subscriptions to Ancestry. So at any rate, I think I want to try using the historical records search for this. So let's come over here and look at records. Okay, so you can do an historical record search here by using your ancestors' information, and we could try that, but I'll just tell you right now, we're not going to come up with anything, because remember that all of those non-indexed image files, that's where it's going to be. So you would, if you just tried this and gave up, you wouldn't find that probate file. So instead, I'm going to look at their collections. You can also use this interactive map. And as we know, Family Search is international. So by using this map, you can go to any place where they have historical records, or just do this browse function here. So they're listed alphabetically. There are over 2,800 collections. By using this search box here, it will bring up all 20 collections of that are dedicated to Vermont. And these range from births, deaths, land records, and probate files. So we have a number of probate files here. Okay, so we have this one, which we saw did not have Windham County in it. And the only other one that does is this Westminster District probate file, and it's a browse images file. Okay. Well, I know that since he was died in Brattleboro, he's not going to be in this collection because it does not include Brattleboro probate. There's no Brattleboro. They're not listing the second district. Okay, so which is kind of odd, but I might be missing something here, but they don't honor that. So I'm going to have to do a catalog search, because one of the principles of the genealogical proof standard that we talked a little about in previous meetings, you need to do an exhaustive search for your records. So let's take a look at the let's see if I'm going to go back here to so this is the catalog search. And we're going to try to come up with this search here, which will give us an idea of what we're facing when we're looking for this probate record. So let's go back to the, okay. So to get to the catalog, the link is listed right here. And to be honest with you, I usually start with a catalog because it's so comprehensive. And the default is to search by place, which will give you a whole listing of the records that are available by the place. But in this particular case, let's just try a keyword. And we can do probate, Vermont. And the other thing I'm going to check here is online, because if it hasn't been digitized, I'm probably going to not be interested in it right at this point. But so let's just try this. Okay. So we have the various results that are 13 of probate records with a Windham County listing. And some of these are not going to be, I'm not even sure why this one came up, but we probably won't be looking at that anyway, and this one. But the ones that we want to look at are the Marlborough District probate records, 1809 to 1915. And this one here, this probate record here, which is Vermont Probate Marlborough. Okay. So at any rate, let's check this one, which is the Supreme Court Administrative Services is the author. Okay. So it says here that these are digital images of originals, House of the Supreme Court in Montpelier. Marlborough Probate District covers the towns in southern part of Windham County. And here is the list, okay? And this little camera here means there are records, digital image records, but there's no index. There's no index whatsoever. So, I mean, you could go through these and it'll make your eyes glaze and you might give up, but I've done this and there is no box here covering 1890 for the alphabetical sequence where Edward Edwards would be. And I'm not sure why, but I had given up after going through this. And so I went back to the other collection, which is the one that was microfilmed at the probate court in Marlborough. So those records were actually transferred, I believe. And maybe Rachel might know about this, but this is the probate records with general index of the county courthouse in Brattleboro, Vermont. Now what we see here is there's a general index. This is not the index where you can type the person's name in, it'll come out, but this is an internal index to the probate records. And this is really cool because we can click on this. And what this is going to do is give you a thumbnail images. And the first one here is going to be a sequence of records of volume 1, which is 1860 to 1882. That's not what we need, because we know he died in 1890. So these controls on the left, we'll go back to the thumbnail and we'll go down a little bit more till we come to the end of that microfilm roll. And then look at this one here, which is volume 2. Okay, this is the volume we're going to want because it's 1890. And let's see, I have the image down here somewhere so we don't have to look at that. Let me see if I can find it here real quick. At any rate, sometimes it's the way you have to do it. You just have to kind of browse through it. This is probably an alphabet. This is probably that is. So I kind of try to figure out where the alphabetical sequence is going to be. Let's look at this one. So that was, okay, that's B. Hey, Wayne, there's a Blanchard there.
That's great.
Let's skip maybe here. Okay, that's a D. So let's go. All right, here we go. Here are the E's, and look at, there's an Edwards up there, but these are not in any kind of alphabetical order. And what it looks to be, they're in a volume order number. And so let's just start with this list here. And your eyes just have to go down the list, and here we go. Here is Edward Edwards. He's in volume 34. So that's cool. We now know the volume. So now what we want to do is we want to go back to that list. And here we go. We got all the volumes listed here. And down here, it gets a little muddy, but here is volume 33 from page 220, volume 34, and volume 36. So this is where we're possibly going to find, or we should find him. Now, because this was a continuation of the previous microfilm, we have to go down and find where the next one begins, and it's this one right here. So so that's the end of volume 33. This is the beginning of volume 34. And these are the index records. And again here, we need to just scroll till we get to, okay, I went too far. All right, here is, I think that looks like an F to me. All right, here we go. And here is Edward Edwards. Page 318 is the will and probate. Page 319 is, I can't read that. Commission. Do you see what that executor?
I think it's probably
Executor's
executive.
expenses and
Expenses.
correspondence.
There you go. Exactly right. here's the inventory and the claims. Now look at this. So if you didn't have this index, you might think that this all stopped here, but page 421, after it's been, the record has been posted in the newspaper and they have the time, then the probate court reconvenes. These are the claims and the counts and distribution. So this is the probate record. This is his will and probate record. And this is kind of cool. So I did this already, so I know where this exists. So it's image 342. You can just type it up in the box there and it will jump to that image. And double click. And let's see. We got to go one more. Here we go. So here is the recording for Edward Everett, same court meeting in Marlborough on March 29th, 1890. This was about 2.5 months after his death, where they probated his will. And good luck. You usually have to transcribe these things in order to understand them. So I did that, so you get full information about it. But that is basically, what we're looking at here. We could spend some time on this, but that's not really wasn't the point of this exercise. Oops, I don't know if I wanted to, let me just see if I have anything else in my, okay. That didn't do what I wanted there. Oh, this is interesting. It's not getting back to my my presentation, but I think actually, do you see that?
You got,
How to browse images?
you have the slide that says how to browse images.
Okay. And then what it's doing when I click on it, it jumps to family search. So and maybe you're still seeing that. So let me go down here. Okay, that was the end of it. All right.
So
Sorry about that. It was a little dense, but I just wanted to show how incredible resource it is. And looks like we lost some people too. So
the
sorry about that. Maybe it was too long.
those probate records, though, I mean, it didn't take you all that long, as long as you knew how to use the index,
That's
the
right.
internal index, and then
That's
find
right.
the,
Exactly.
find the file. Anybody
Exactly.
that's done any work with searching with records on microfilm can appreciate that it's a lot easier to do it on the computer.
Right. Right.
Jerry, there's one question here. You've mentioned this before, that the library has a more extended access to the records that are on Family Search.
That's right.
So I guess the question, I really don't know. I was wondering how they decide which records are available just to everybody online and which ones you have to go to a family history center, or in this case, the Brattleboro Library.
Right. Yeah, there are certain distinctions between what you can access from home and what you can get at an affiliate library or a family history center. And I think they have to do with their contracts with the agencies and organizations they've got access to digitize those records. So they say, can these records be viewed by anybody in the world from anywhere in the world? They say, fine. Or we don't want our records available to everybody unless they go into a library or family history center. Or we only want our records available to those people in the family history center. So they're like 3 levels of access. But Brooks has the affiliate library status. So when you come across an image with a little cross across it, meaning that image is not available to you from home, it will tell you that it will be available at an affiliate library, and you can go down to Brooks and use their Wi-Fi connection.
We've got another question about how can users contribute records to Family Search?
That's a good question. I know that Family Search invites indexing, and I would go when you log into Family Search, check out the help center, because there might be something on that. But we could research that and perhaps get back to the person. Bill
There
Clark
are,
with that.
I don't know that they have followed through, but the Bellows Falls Historical Society, I help them contact people at Family Search. They have roving teams of camera people, basically, people that go out and film, digitized records. And there is a probate file at the Bellows Falls Historical Society that isn't currently digitized. They were attempting to do that, but I don't know that I don't know what the timeline is and how long it would take for somebody to actually get around to coming to Bellows Falls with their
Wow.
equipment, digitize the records.
And
So,
where's that from? Is it just
the probate records?
yeah? Is it from?
Well, there was a probate court in Bellows Falls for a while.
Oh wow.
I forgot which years exactly, but
We could actually enter
more
that,
recent years than some of the old ones you were just looking at.
right? Because it's a wiki. The Family Search is a wiki. You can get an account and create a section on that Vermont probate records with that information.
Oh.
An undigitized probate collection is available at the Bellows
Oh,
Falls,
really?
and that would let people know that
So you have an account, a separate account from Family Search, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's separate, but you can. I think so. You can sign in. You can become a contributor to the wiki, because that
Okay.
wiki is crowdsourced.
Oh, all right, yeah. Well, I should check into that.
Check into that. Oh, good. Rachel's back.
No, I've been here the whole time. You didn't need
Oh.
to see me or hear me.
Okay.
But this has been terrific. I've learned a ton from both of you. I did have a question. If you have a sense of how much overlap there is between the two resources, do you go to one knowing that they're more comprehensive for their military records, or is it really kind of a one-to-one overlap? Is it hard to know because there's just so many records in both of them?
No. I'm sure there are people who know the answer to that question, because it's always kind of bugged me, because you have all of these services out there, sort of offering the same thing. So what's unique to them?
Right.
Like I know Find My Past is very good and strong with British and UK records, but they might not be. And so it's just a good question, because they're both, both huge databases.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, one of the examples, though, is what you just showed, is that you wouldn't, if those records are not cataloged,
catalog,
like
right.
you were just showing us, and you have to
Exactly.
browse through them, then they're not going to be on Ancestry.
Good
There are
point.
some things on Ancestry with, and I think they're always expanding it, like wills and probate
Right.
records.
Right.
But sometimes when I've gone there, it's just like there'll be a document basically appointing somebody as the administrator, officially appointing them an administrator of an estate, and not have all of the other records that you want to see, like the will or the distribution of the estate, or like those kinds of things. And it is, well, military records, for example, there's another whole separate database called Fold 3 that, like where you could find pension records and that kind of thing. And yet Ancestry has Revolutionary War pension records, but not Civil War records.
I can.
You can find the index card, but then you'd have to go somewhere else. You could find for example, you could find the index card on a Civil War Union soldier's pension record, but to see the actual record, then you'd have to go to Fold 3. And if they
Right.
haven't digitized it yet, you'd have to make a trip down to Washington to the archives there. So.
I can post this, a link to this. This is a four-page handout called Genealogy Giants, comparing the four major websites: Ancestry, Family Search, Find My Past, and MyHeritage. and they do it in a tabular format. I would share it with you, but it's actually sold by the person, so I don't want to violate copyright or anything. But I can give you the URL, and if you're interested, they're pretty cheap. I think they're like, you can buy it. I think it's $5 just to download it as a PDF, and it's very helpful. It's a couple of years old, but you know, it still gives you really good information. So right at a glance, you can see the scopes of the collections. So I can do that. james.com. So are there other questions? Otherwise, we can go to Rachel and she can tell us about Archives Month. If you're good to
All
go.
right, well, I'll jump in because I want to make sure you have enough time for more general questions at the end of the meeting. But yeah, good morning. And Jerry, thanks so much for giving me a chance to speak to this group. I love the interest and enthusiasm that you all have for genealogy and local history. And I wanted to let you know that October is Archives Month across the country, and we are doing a few things in Vermont and collaboratively with New Hampshire as well. There's a vtarchivesmonth.org website that has a calendar, and there's blog posts about different types of records that relate to our theme, which is Vermont Voice and Vote. Mary Ide, who is here, is on the committee that has helped develop the Archives Month for this year. One thing that both Mary and I are involved in is that Rodney O'Bean over at Keene State College, he's the archivist there, he got in touch over the summer really wanting to explore the Connecticut River Valley, both in terms of its repositories and its history, and feeling like that river has been, the Connecticut River has been a divide, and wanting to kind of make our way across it and talk across the river. So he developed a series of conversations that are happening on Zoom throughout this month in honor of archives. Last Thursday, to kick it off, I talked to Gail Golek. Maybe some of you are familiar with her. She's an archaeologist, but her more recent claim to fame is that she has a wonderful podcast called The Secret Life of Death, that if you don't know it, you might really enjoy. She is obsessed with gravestones and will find a stone and then trace the history, and does pretty terrific archival research into the person, and then knows enough history and history of science, as well as her archaeological and material culture chops, allows her to really tell wonderful stories about the individuals, about the time period. She gets into the art and iconography, as well as into disease and epidemic and migration patterns. So that's a wonderful podcast. These things are being recorded, so if you're really excited about hearing more from Gail directly, I can certainly give you the link once that's available. And next Wednesday, Mary's going to be speaking as part of a roundtable, and again, emphasizing this across the river conversation. Brattleboro, Keene, what's happening in the area? And she'll be joined by Carolyn Friesa, who's a conservator in Bellows Falls, Darlene Bielowski, who's a professional appraiser and a member of the Collections Care and Conservation Alliance, and Jenna Carroll from the Historical Society of Cheshire County. And then there's another event, every night of every week of October, there is something, and we'll cap it all off at the end of the month with a conversation between our two state archivists, my boss, Tanya Marshall, and Brian Burford over in New Hampshire. And you're welcome to, these are meant to be conversations, and folks who attend are supposed to jump in and ask questions. So I invite you to get in touch with me. I'll put my email in the chat. If you want to hear more about this, I can send you the flyer. And I'd also want to just put it out there that Rodney and I hope to do this again next year and to make it a regular thing. And I think it'd be fun to have some more genealogical focused discussions about settlement patterns around the Connecticut River Valley, and what you all might have found about families that are they hopping back and forth, or is that river really a divide? And if you're on the Vermont side, you're not going over to New Hampshire. So I will maybe, hopefully, reach out to you all next summer to see if anyone wants to talk on that topic or something else that you're interested in and researching at the time. Another thing that I'm working on for Archives Month, and this is where I'm really hopeful that I'll get some interest from some of you, is I've been involved with the Vermont Suffrage Centennial Alliance for about 2 years now, and we're going to continue to commemorate the passage of the 19th Amendment well into 2021. But one thing that I've been doing is that we often get the question, you know, so where are the Black women and the people of color who were involved in the suffrage movement in Vermont? And I kept having to say, there weren't any. And I still think that's the right answer, but I was increasingly unsatisfied with having to give that answer. So I decided to look at the census and see how many women, at least according to the census enumerators, were identified as termed in their statistical analysis Negro. And there were 144 women identified as such over the age of 21 in Vermont in 1920. So I've determined that I'd like to find their names and to find out as much about their stories as I can. And I've invited the public to help me. I pitched this on a Vermont Edition show at the end of August, and a couple citizens got in touch with me, very excited. And I've been in touch with them, and they've kind of dropped off the side of the earth for the moment. I'm hoping they'll re-emerge. But I'm looking for other partners in this, and had the idea that it might be fun for us just to make a time to spend an hour scrolling through census records together, searching for these folks. And then once we have the list, and I've been working on my own county, Orange County, and I'm about halfway through, and I've found 4 women so far. And we know from the statistics from the census how many we can expect to find in each county. And in some cases for the larger towns, we know how many are in each town. So I'm pulling out all of the information included in the census with the idea of then tracing some of these women, and then later in the month or later on in the year, having another Zoom session where we invite the public, to anyone who's interested to listen in as we tell some of the stories of these women. And hopefully, I'm trying to find some that were administered the Freeman's Oath, or otherwise seemed like they were at least going to vote, even if they weren't involved in the suffrage movement. But that's my project. I would love to have some assistance. So if they're remotely interested, or if you want to hear more about it, I don't want to take up everybody's time right now. But please get in touch and let me know.
Great, Rachel. That's a great project. So I'm interested.
All right,
Put me down as an interest.
that's great.
How would people get in touch with you?
My email in the chat is rachel.onuf@vermont.gov. Alternatively, if you want to put your email in the chat, I will get in touch with you.
I'd like to do that.
Wonderful.
I was those
Or just say
144. Are they broken out at all by? It's just statistics, like you said. You haven't broken out by county, but not by town.
For towns that are larger than 2,500 people, they did break them out. So I have a simple chart that shows how many for those towns and for the county.
So that would just help to figure out where to look.
Yeah, and I can tell you, and we could start, I mean, for Wyndham, there's 13 women over the age of 21. We know that 3 of them were in Bellows Falls and 5 were in Brattleboro. So the other 5 are scattered throughout the county.
I'd just like to just mention that Ann Dempsey did a wonderful series of articles in the 1994 Brattleboro Reformer on African Americans who lived in Brattleboro. And you,
She's muted.
I hate to put you on the
She's staying
spot.
mum.
Hi.
Hi,
Yeah.
Ann.
Hi. Yeah, I'd be interested in being part of that project. And the African Americans that I researched were basically those who lived in Brattleboro before the Civil War.
Mhm.
Or I have a little bit about soldiers, Black soldiers who fought in the Civil War from Brattleboro. So yeah, it'd be interesting to find out about 1920. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and this is just kind of my point of entry because I've been so involved in the suffrage centennial. But I think it's once in and once there's a really good set of data for that time period. Yes, I'm really fascinated, and I've gone down a couple rabbit holes already, tracking people to see where they came from. And a lot of folks didn't seem to stick around. They were passing through Vermont. So there's, of course, larger stories to be told about what people were doing. I'm curious, Anne, if you worked with Joe Rivers and his students?
Um, I don't think so, but someone told me that they use some of the information from the articles. Is that right?
Okay.
At the Brattleboro High School? Yeah, I'd love to. Do they have a blog? Is that what it is?
I happened to hear a story, and for those of you who don't know, he's a social studies teacher, might even be middle school, but maybe it's high school. And he had his students start doing research. He's also involved with the Brattleboro Historical Society. And also, correct me if I'm wrong in anything I'm saying. Mary, you probably know all about this too. But he had his students doing research on African-American soldiers in the Civil War and realizing that their names were not appearing on the monument in Brattleboro commemorating the soldiers that fought from Brattleboro in the Civil War. So again, raising really relevant issues that I think the community is attempting to address in and around pandemic. So that's an exciting project, and I think shows the power of records for correcting the record.
Right. Good.
Yeah, it was actually, it's a wonderful podcast that the Historical Society does using these middle school students. And every week, I think, or every 2 weeks, the podcast is released. So if you're interested, just on your podcast, whatever you use, Apple or Stitcher or something, you can search for it. And I think it was just 2 weeks ago that he did the piece on African Americans in Brattleboro.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it because all of them are, they usually, it's there, but they also upload them to SoundCloud, which is kind of a portal for this kind of stuff. And for some reason, I'm not seeing it real fast here.
I believe I've read some of the research that they did or the findings that they had, and some of the folks that I had names of and very little history about. These students found out more about them, which was really exciting. So they're doing an excellent job, it seems to me.
It's incredible. It's really,
Yeah.
they should win an award for this, how they're getting students interested, young students, middle grade students. So,
Right.
well, thanks, Rachel. That was great. And I hope people are, interested in helping out. And it would be fun to do a kind of a Zoom where we're looking at the census records. And is that kind of what you had envisioned?
It is. I mean, totally just, it would be to just, we each, you'd be looking at Brattleboro, and there's probably different districts, but everyone would be in a different enumeration. And as Wayne was showing earlier, you'd be browsing through, we drill down to that enumeration district. And it's a quick scan. I do not trust the indexing. So I do look at the original record, but it's pretty, you can, again, train your eye. Yeah. So there's a whole lot of W's, let me tell you. But that's if you see an MU or a B, just stop. And kind of because I'm crazy and because I love context, I'm also gathering information about their household members. It just seems like mine as well, as long as we found them. Part of the way of situating them is to
And-
know what their household was at that
Right.
point.
In 1920, they give you the actual street and house number too.
Well, if you live in a if you live in a
Yeah,
proper
yeah, yeah,
town,
that's right. Yeah.
you know, I'm up here in the
Exactly.
boondocks, so
Right,
I'm not getting a lot of that, but
right. Yeah, more urban than,
yeah, but absolutely, no, we could start to really situate them, you know.
yeah. That's cool.
Yeah,
Well, thank you.
yeah, and no, and I'd love, and if you're part of this project interests you, or you like the idea, but you don't want to do it with, you know, hanging out with us, drinking coffee and tea and whatever else, and scanning through records together and kibitzing, that's fine too. You can have an assignment and go do it. Or just come and listen to whatever stories we come up with at the end. I'll certainly let you all know what the dates for these events will be.
Okay, that's great. So the one next week on October 7th, that's going to be a Zoom.
Yes, it is.
And where do you get the link for that?
You have to email Rodney, and I'll put his, if you are interested in getting, I put his email in the chat.
Okay.
Oops.
Great. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so last part of the agenda is any more questions, genealogical questions, and we're going to see what we like to do next for next time and the date. Wayne, do you remember the date we were looking at offhand?
No, I'm sorry.
We're
Well,
trying
we've
to,
been going 2 months away, so
Yeah.
looking at what, early December?
I think it was early December, and I do have it marked. Let me just check my calendar real quick. Let's see. Maybe it was the 5th. I don't know.
Like the 5th of December?
Yeah, I guess I didn't have it on my calendar.
Hmm.
So that would be like the first Saturday. Is that okay with a few of you who are here? Yeah, we'll just, things come up, so we'll just do it. So we'll do it on that day.
Should be all right.
Yeah, 10 a.m. Anybody have ideas for topics or?
I'd like something on record keep.
I'm sorry, Ken, what'd you say?
I'd like something on record keeping, how to keep, how to, I don't know, have something on my home computer. I know on Family Search, I sometimes try to copy down a citation that's there,
Mhm.
but I'm not sure the best way to do it. I want to, if I'm developing a family tree, I've sometimes copied some of those citations into a page document, but then I have a hard time going back on it.
Okay,
And I'm sure there's some tricks.
yeah. So this would be something more than like a research log where you're actually.
Well, I would like something on research logs as well. I've read a bit about them, and some of them, it just seems like it would be very tedious to, write it all down. And I'm wondering if there's some shortcuts.
Well, you know what, it's tedious and, I don't, I have to admit that I'm not always doing it when I'm doing it casually, but it
Yeah.
should save you time in the end because you won't have to redo those searches 6 weeks from now because because you've forgotten or whatever, or
Yeah.
shows you how to get there. So what do you think, Wayne? Maybe something on research logs and how to do some citations?
Well, the basics, there's the research log, there's creating family group sheets, although I
Yeah.
do most of that on the computer now, not on
Yeah.
paper. But
I'm sure we could come up with something that would be interesting. Anybody else have any ideas?
I'm also interested in GEDCOM.
Oh, yeah.
at what it, I haven't really, I'm fairly new to this, very new to this. So whenever it's mentioned, I think that's something I should look up and figure out how it works, but I've not done it yet.
Well, it's actually, GEDCOM is a format for exporting and importing genealogical records from your software.
Might be good.
Yeah,
I mean,
It's,
other people may be knowledgeable about it. I
yeah.
don't know.
Wayne.
Well,
Go
the
ahead.
tough part with that is that you only need it if you're going to move,
Yeah,
if you want to take your entire database and move it somewhere else to another, for example, if I use a software called Reunion
Uh-huh.
as the basic database, but when I wanted to put that on another website, I create the GEDCOM file and then I can upload it somewhere else. For example, I recently, I uploaded my DNA results to a site called MyHeritage,
Yeah.
which is similar, they compete with Ancestry for business, basically. But you can upload your DNA results. And then I also uploaded a family tree. But all I had to do was, I guess we could go through and show people how to do that, but you don't really see much. In other words, you click and say, yes, I want to download the GEDCOM file. It gets saved to your computer, and then you use that file to upload it to another site or to another piece of software. So you don't really, there's not much to see.
you're right. It's a standard so that all the genealogy programs can communicate, and also
Okay.
but maybe, are you thinking maybe GEDmatch?
I'm not sure. I just sort of hear the names of certain things and
Yeah.
think, oh, I should look into it.
Yeah.
And but I really am trying to, I don't know, I think get the citations more than anything,
Yeah.
and to figure out what's a good way to track things, because I'd like to be, I don't know, I just like to be able to go back to it. And I'd also like to be able to write short family stories with links so that some of my other family members can say, oh, this is something interesting to look at. And so I sort of want to figure out how to get a way to do links easily, I think. The other thing that was mentioned in the last meeting we had came up as were people interested in researching Irish ancestors. And that was something that came up as, I don't know, I think it was second only to the discussion today. And
That's true.
It's something I might be interested in. I don't know about other people.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some great sources on Family Search and Ancestry.
Right.
Because Ireland has a great archival repository with lots of records that you can get online.
Yeah. So that's of an interest to me.
That's good. Anybody else have some ideas?
I was just going to share another database for searching. There's two sides to every war, the revolution being one of them, and many loyalists fled to New Brunswick. My husband's mother was born in New Brunswick, so in researching his family tree, I found the Provincial Archives of New Brunswick to be a very wonderful source that's also free. So if you have ancestors in that direction, it may be helpful to you.
A lot of border crossings. I heard one statistic that in the American Revolution, 1/3 were for it, 1/3 were against it, 1/3 didn't care.
Probably true.
Well, we could knock off early unless somebody has something they want to. I might make a little promotion for the Brattleboro Literary Festival, which is coming up here October 16th through 18th with 50 authors, 24 sessions, and it's all
Oh,
going to
wow.
be online.
Oh, wow.
But we have some headliners, including Paul Krugman, the Nobel Prize winning economist who writes for the New York Times, and Ezekiel Emanuel, the big doctor, COVID expert from the University of Pennsylvania. Lots of, couple of historians, Lynn Olson, talking about female spies, and then lots of fiction authors, prize-winning authors. So if you go to Brattleboro Literary Festival.org, there'll be links there to sign up for fiction or nonfiction. And what the links do, if you sign up for fiction or nonfiction or both, it'll give you one link and you'll be able to sign in to any of the events over the weekend. So you don't have to keep track of 24 different links of things going on. So theoretically, that's the way it's supposed to work.
This is
sounds good.
Barbara. Could I ask Bill Clark a question? He posted, he's developing a family history site. Is that correct? Can you talk about that, Bill?
Yes,
Oh, I'm
and
sorry.
thank you for the
No.
question. My brother and I and my sister started digitizing family photographs, and my sister indexed them all with the correct information. Most of the photographs had the information written on the back of the photograph, so we were able to do that, and that was a very worthwhile project. And then I thought, well, gee, we should be able to expand further to make
Sure.
some sort of a World Wide Web presence for our family history. Fortunately, my brother John had done a lot of the research and tied a lot of things together on Ancestry. So I was very interested in your presentation, Wayne. So anyway, I thought it might make sense to do that, and
So
we've
will
been at
it
it for, I
be a
guess,
blog?
maybe 4 or 5 years,
Is it going to be like a blog?
and we've made a lot of headway.
So
Bill,
Okay.
I'm
is
a
it going
little
to be a
confused.
blog?
Have you actually posted stuff online?
Yeah, there's a the website. I put the website in my introduction.
I couldn't get to it though.
Oh, you couldn't get to it? Well, that's not a very good introduction now, is it?
Why I was questioning you. www.clark-hart.us.
Yeah, I actually didn't check it this morning, but
Let me try it again.
that's interesting.
I tried it.
Okay,
and
well,
posted it, and I wasn't successful then.
Well, there's something that says maintenance mode is
yeah,
on.
I think Bluehost is going through a maintenance cycle right now.
Okay, so maybe that's it. It did
So
read
yeah, stay
something.
tuned. But we've been at that for at least 4 years now, and it's getting close to about 5,000 records. So
Wow.
and talking about the JEDCOM, we couldn't have done it without the JEDCOM, and my brother was able to generate that from his ancestry entries and trees, and from there that formed the building block for the rest of the records.
Well, that sounds like a good program.
Oh, it's a great program, and
No,
the
I mean,
support, the community is very good. Yeah,
For you to
TMG is
present to
very,
the.
very good. I think I paid for the software itself. It's actually not that expensive. I think it was $40, $40 or $50, and then there is some technical work required as far as uploading the content to the hosting provider. TNG is partnered with a hosting provider, and they help walk you through getting the website up and so on.
What's
I
the
went
software?
with a third party, Bluehost, and they're very good. So, but again, it's just, if you know what you're doing, if you feel comfortable doing it that way, it's very versatile. The support is excellent. The community is very supportive.
What is the software again, Bill?
It's TNG for, I think after version 12 now.
But you
The
mentioned,
next generation of software, I think it's called the next generation of genealogy software.
Bluehost.
Yeah, Bluehost is an internet hosting provider. They host websites.
Okay.
And I think we pay for the service plus the email. I think it was, we're paying maybe $130 a year for the hosting to have an internet presence. So I think it's about the cost of a Ancestry subscription. I don't know, actually, I don't know how much Ancestry is, Wayne.
Like,
Oh, it's about,
Yeah,
I don't know, it's roughly about $100 for 6 months.
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
depending.
so for
For
about
the
the cost
US
of an
version.
Ancestry subscription, we're hosting our own site.
Yeah,
And I've had some great feedback from other users. Currently, there's a person in Ohio who has been researching his Bailey family in Texas. And it turns out he and I have a common ancestor going back to, I think, the late 1800s, somewhere in Bradford County. And one of my ancestors married one of his. And so it was very interesting. And so we've been collaborating on a few records and exchanging information. So that's been fun. But he didn't know about this particular marriage in Bradford County until he stumbled across our website. So if I can get,
Mm.
one response to my message in a bottle, I think it's worthwhile effort.
it definitely is. I posted the link to
Yes.
TNG in the chat. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
great project.
You also had a suggestion about, we might take a look at Find a
Yeah,
Grave.
Find a Grave. Yeah.
Or the,
Oh, yeah,
Like that.
that's a good
That's-
idea. Yeah.
an excellent site.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Could I
Yeah.
just ask a quick question?
Go
Sure.
ahead.
Well, my grandfather on my mom's side came from the Fort Edwards area of New York, which is near the Vermont border. And I was just wondering, I think you mentioned earlier that that border changed. So some of the towns around the border might have might have been part of different states. And is that a tricky thing when you go back a ways to identify them? Or, I mean, is that a problem? Or
Mhm.
it's pretty clear cut when they're taking records, they're either in one state or the other?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's clear cut. Rachel
No, yeah.
might know more about that. Right, because
It's a problem it's a problem in Vermont because the
Right.
border, was pretty porous there for a while. I mean,
right,
the New Hampshire governor was giving land grants and the New York was also giving land grants.
right,
So,
claiming the same land. Yeah, there's a great piece in the Reformer today by the Historical Society on the Westminster Massacre, where
Oh,
William French was shot, killed.
Right.
They do a great background on it and talks about the land grants, and they make it relevant to today in terms of what's happening, in terms of communities at war with one another.
huh.
You know,
Hmm. Interesting.
red state, blue state, British versus colonialists. It's a great essay. They do such a great job.
Huh. Okay, thank you.
in terms of finding the records, though, a lot of those records were kept by the town, not so much the county.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, there might have been, that's where it gets kind of confusing, but if,
Right.
Hmm.
I was doing some research in Halifax and I went over to the town clerk's office and, their records go way back back to the time when it would have been a county in New York.
Wow.
But the records are there, you know, in the town clerk's office. So,
It would have been Cumberland County, right?
Cumberland County.
no, it was another name, I think,
Oh,
for
really?
Halifax.
Well, you know, Wyndham, this is great. When I was reading about this, Wyndham County was first called Unity County, but
Oh.
nobody liked that. They couldn't agree on it. So it's in Wyndham County.
For New
That's
England,
funny.
this guidebook is really helpful
That is.
because it'll give you the name of the town, and it'll tell you, you know, what county it's in, and if if it was originally part of another town, it'll tell you that as
Yeah.
well.
That's
So,
invaluable.
in
Yeah.
terms of just
Okay.
That's a New England.
research. It
Right.
goes through all 6 New England states, and it's just a way to try to sort out, you know, I mean, especially there are names of towns that have disappeared and other, you know, and others that have became part of other towns and that kind of thing. So in terms of finding out where the records might be.
Okay, thank you.
Good point.
Great.
Well, we're coming on noon here, which is our official ending time. Any last comments? If you have ideas for presentations, or actually if any of you want to do something, that would be fine too. That'd be great.
Yeah.
You know, if you have something, I mean, Bill, maybe you'd like to
Yeah.
do something on TNG in your project.
Yeah.
Give you some time to think about it. It's just, you can let us know. Okay, well,
think we're
that's
set.
great.
Thank you.
It's been good.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. So we'll see
Thank you.
everybody on December 5th at 10 a.m. We'll send a link out so you can register.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.